keep telling myself I should have quit that job the day I started. That's the honest truth. It wasn't just the pay, though that sucked. It was the way the whole thing felt. Like the company didn't care if you got lost, or if your truck broke down in the middle of nowhere, or if you ended up dead in a ditch. Packages mattered. Deadlines mattered. People didn't. I guess that's why I stayed, because I was already used to feeling like that. Anyway, it was one of those late afternoons where the sky can't decide if it's gonna rain or clear up, and everything's a weird yellow-gray. I had 3 stops left all the way on the other side of town across the river. I didn't know the place well, just moved here, still felt like I was living out of cardboard boxes, but the GPS was supposed to make it easy. Punch in the address, follow the blue line. Only the GPS always sent me across the bridge. I'd seen it once before driving in during the move. A big rusted skeleton of a thing, cables hanging like they were stretched too thin. People called it Old Mercy Bridge. Somebody told me it used to be the only way into town before they built the bypass, but now it was just a shortcut for trucks and locals who didn't care if the planks rattled when you drove across. And me? I didn't care. I just wanted to get the job done. The radio was on, some local country station with twangy guitars that all sounded the same. Kept me awake at least. My eyelids felt heavy, the way they always did after 8-9 hours behind the wheel. Windows down, air coming in damp and warm, bugs slapping against the windshield. I passed a row of old farmhouses, most of them leaning like they were sick of standing. One had a kid's bike rusting out front. Another had boards nailed across the windows, except I could see somebody's shadow moving inside. When I slowed at the stop sign, I caught sight of a woman watching from her porch. She didn't wave, didn't nod, just stared like I wasn't supposed to be there. I pulled away fast. That's when the fog showed up. It wasn't gentle. One minute the road was clear, the next it was like somebody rolled cotton batting across the pavement. My headlights stabbed into it and disappeared, like the light itself was getting swallowed. The first thing that hit me was the smell. Wet, sharp, metallic, like old coins or blood. I told myself it was just river fog. Back where I grew up, we'd get it thick around the marshes sometimes. But this felt different. Too sudden. Too heavy. The radio cut out. I smacked the dial, thinking maybe I hit a bump. Static filled the cab, loud enough I winced. It wasn't normal static either, it had a rhythm almost like breathing. I reached to turn it off, and then a voice pushed through. Emergency alert. I froze with my hand on the dial. The voice was low, rough, male, like somebody was talking through a busted PA system. Stay off the bridge. It's not safe. Do not look down. The words cracked in and out, swallowed by the static. My chest hurt from how fast it was slamming, like it was trying to punch its way out. Then silence. The country music flicked back on like nothing happened. I laughed. I actually laughed. Came out too loud, the kind of laugh you don't believe in. Yeah, right? I muttered. Probably some prank. Or maybe the station testing their system. Who the hell knows? Except, I kept thinking about that voice. It didn't sound like a recording. It sounded like someone right there in the cab with me, whispering in my ear but from across the room. I shook it off, pressed the gas harder. The GPS still pointed straight ahead. The blue line cut across the bridge. If I detoured, I'd be an hour late, maybe more. And the last thing I needed was another complaint from dispatch. I told myself I didn't believe in small-town superstitions. People here probably had 100 ghost stories about that bridge, the same way folks back home had stories about haunted train tracks or devil dogs in the woods. But my palms were sweating against the wheel, and I couldn't stop glancing at the fog boiling thicker up ahead. When I finally saw the bridge, it didn't look like any ghost story I'd ever heard. It looked worse. The metal beams rose out of the fog like giant ribs, dripping rust the color of dried blood. The cables groaned and swayed, even though the air was dead still. My headlights caught on the rivets, and for a second it looked like the whole structure was bleeding. I slowed down without meaning to. My chest was tight, and the radio hissed again. Static, then just one word, hissed through like someone exhaling it right into my ear. Driver! I jerked so hard the wheel slipped under my hands. My truck swerved toward the guardrail before I yanked it back. My insides twisted like I was gonna puke. Driver. That was me. It wasn't a coincidence. Couldn't be. I reached for the dial again, but the station was steady now. Twangy guitars, upbeat chatter about the county fair. Like nothing happened. Like nothing ever happened. The bridge loomed closer, each step of the truck rattling louder against the pavement. I could feel it in my teeth, like the road itself was warning me. I told myself I'd keep going. Packages mattered. Deadlines mattered. That's what I told myself. But my eyes wouldn't leave the fog, and I couldn't shake the feeling that if I crossed that bridge, I wasn't coming back the same. I had the radio up just enough to drown out the sound of the truck's rattling suspension. Old country music, some guy twanging about a lost dog or a lost woman. Same difference. I wasn't really listening. I was just trying to keep myself awake because the road out here was nothing but blacktop, fog, and the occasional sad tree hunched on the shoulder like it had given up on growing straight. Then it happened. The music cut out mid-verse, like someone had yanked the cord. Dead air for a second. Then this burst of static that sounded like a whole bag of gravel poured over my brain. My hands tightened on the wheel before I even thought about it. I told myself it was just the signal out here, mountains or hills or whatever passed for terrain in this part of nowhere. But then a voice broke through. Emergency alert. Stay off the bridge. Stay off the bridge. I laughed out loud. Not the good kind of laugh either. The tired, mean one you make when something spooks you but you don't want to admit it. It repeated. Same words, same flat voice. Male maybe, or a recording. Could have been the sheriff. The one whose face I'd seen on the corkboard at the gas station with the community notices and lost pet flyers. Square-jawed guy, looked like he'd never laughed in a photo in his life. But this voice wasn't normal. It was too clipped, like every word had been chopped down to the root. I reached for the dial, figuring the station had switched over to one of those emergency broadcast tests. The kind that tells you where to hide in case the Russians finally get bored and push the button. But the little scrolling text bar on my dash screen just blinked with the station number. No, this is a test of the emergency system. Just numbers. I kept driving. The road started sloping down, curling lazy around the fog that clung thicker the further I went. My headlights looked weak, like they were just painting the fog instead of cutting through it. The voice came again. Stay off the bridge. It's not safe. Stay off the bridge. I turned the volume down, but the static hissed like it didn't care what I wanted. And under the static, this is the part one hate admitting, there was something else. A sound. It wasn't a voice, not exactly. More like someone breathing words, right into my ear, but from far away at the same time. I couldn't catch all of it, but I swear I heard a name. My name. I cranked the knob until the radio went dead silent. Just a blank channel. That should have fixed it, but the silence didn't help. It was worse, because then I was listening to the truck itself, and I realized I could hear things I usually didn't. The squeak of the fan belt, the way the cargo straps in the back were rattling against each other. My own breath uneven, too loud. Get a grip, I muttered, wiping my hand across my mouth like that would scrub the jitters off. The bridge wasn't even half a mile ahead. I'd never crossed it at night, but I'd seen it during the day. A big iron thing, ribs of rust curling over the river like a busted spine. Locals called it Cutter's Bridge. Somebody at the depot told me it was named after the guy who built it, not because it sliced into the fog like a knife. I didn't ask follow-ups. I'm not much of a small talker, And besides, bridges don't usually make headlines unless they collapse. Which is exactly what my brain decided to start picturing. Collapsing. My chest hurt from how fast it was slamming, like it was trying to punch its way out. I gripped the wheel tighter, telling myself I'd already crossed worse bridges back when I ran deliveries up north. Frozen metal, potholes you could lose a dog in. This one, just old, just creaky. That's all. The radio popped back on without me touching it. Don't look down. I jerked so hard the truck swerved onto the shoulder, gravel spitting like bullets. I slammed it back on the road, muttering curses like they were prayers. Don't look down, the voice repeated. This time there was no mistaking it. The voice belonged to the sheriff. I recognized the clipped drawl, the way he chopped off the ends of words like he was rationing them. I'd heard it earlier in the week at the diner when he was talking to the waitress. But why the hell was he on my radio? And why was he telling me specifically, it felt like, to stay off the bridge? I slowed down, knuckles burning against the wheel. Fog curled over the road in lazy white sheets, thin enough to see through, thick enough to look like it was hiding something. And under it, just barely visible, the shadowed mouth of the bridge stretched out. It looked wrong, like a mouth that hadn't been told how to close. I should have turned around, should have called dispatch and told them the road was closed. Screw it, I wasn't paid enough to die for a box of cheap electronics. But then I thought about the last time I'd been late. The supervisor's face, the "you're replaceable" tone he used. No, I couldn't afford to make waves. Not here, not yet. So I told myself the same thing I always did. It's just a job. Deliver the package, get the signature, drive home, microwave dinner, pass out. Do it again tomorrow. That's all life was out here. Routine. I turned the radio back on, just to prove to myself I wasn't scared. Bad idea. The static had gone quiet, replaced with something else. Voices. Not the sheriff. Not one voice. Many. Layered over each other. Too soft to understand. Too close to ignore. They rose and fell, like breathing, like chanting, like the sound of people lined up on the other side of the fog waiting for me. And underneath it all, clear as a bell, I heard my coworker's name. The one who'd run this route last week. The one I hadn't seen since. I almost puked right there in the cab. My insides were twisting up on themselves, like they were trying to wring me dry. I killed the radio again, but the words stuck in my ears, echoing. Stay off the bridge. The sheriff. Don't look down. The voices. My coworker's name. And my own whispered like a promise. I drove forward anyway, because if I stopped now, I'd have to admit I believed it. The first metal groan of the bridge hit me before my tires even touched it. A sound deep enough to crawl up my legs, lodge itself in my ribs. Not just creaking, groaning, like the bridge was sick of holding anyone at all. I eased onto the planks, my headlights catching slices of wet iron ribs overhead, each one dripping red-brown rust that looked too much like blood when it hit the hood. Just steel, I whispered, like saying it out loud made it true. Just old-ass steel. The fog thickened as soon as I hit the middle. It wasn't normal fog. It felt heavier, like walking into a room where someone's just finished smoking a whole pack of cigarettes. The taste of iron settled on my tongue, bitter, metallic, too much like sucking on a penny. The steering wheel vibrated under my hands. Not the usual hum of tires over uneven boards. This was irregular, like the bridge had a pulse. I tried to shake it off. Get the box delivered. That's it. Don't think. Don't look. But of course I looked. Out the side window, the river moved like black glass. For a second, I thought it was reflecting my headlights wrong. Then I saw it wasn't a reflection at all. Faces. Not clear, not detailed. Just shapes, smears of pale, stretched skin that bent with the current. They were turned upward, mouths open like they were trying to breathe air but only taking in water. I gripped the wheel so hard my nails dug into the padding. "Don't look down." The sheriff's voice hit me again, but not through the radio this time, inside my head, like memory, but fresher. I blinked, yanked my eyes back to the road. I told myself I'd imagine the faces. That's what fog and fatigue does. It makes shadows into monsters, ripples into ghosts. But then something scraped along the passenger side of the truck. Metal against metal, but wet, like nails dragged through meat. My gut clenched so bad I doubled forward, forehead nearly hitting the wheel. The truck lurched, and for a split second I thought the whole damn bridge was going. I slammed the brakes. The world went silent, except for the engine's cough and my breath tearing out of me. Fog pressed against the windshield like it was alive, curling slow, sliding across the glass in finger shapes. I told myself to move, put the truck back in gear, just roll forward. But my legs wouldn't. They felt nailed to the floor. My brain was screaming go, but nothing worked. That's when I heard it. Not the sheriff, not the radio, not static. A whisper, clear as someone leaning over the seat behind me. "You shouldn't be here." I whipped my head around. The cab was empty, of course. Just my duffel bag, the smell of stale fast food wrappers. But I swear the air dipped cold in the seat, like something had leaned forward to talk. I tried to laugh, came out broken, like air leaking from a tire. Yeah, no kidding. I shifted into drive again, tires squealing against the damp boards. The truck crawled forward. That's when the fog pulled a trick. It thinned for just a second, opened a window through itself. Enough for me to see the far end of the bridge. The exit. Safety. Except someone was standing there. Tall. Still. Shaped like a person, but wrong. Too still. Like it hadn't learned how to be alive. I slammed my palm against the horn, just to break the image, to prove to myself it wasn't real. The sound blasted through the fog, and the figure didn't flinch, didn't move. I blinked, gone. Just fog again. "Get through," I muttered. 1 mile of bad road. That's it. But I couldn't shake the picture burned behind my eyes. Not of the figure, of the faces under the water, pale and waiting. My coworker's name rang in my head. And my own. I pressed harder on the gas. The truck picked up speed, boards rattling under the tires like bones knocking together. Every groan of the bridge felt sharper, angrier. The fog pushed back against the headlights so hard it was like driving into a wall. Somewhere under me, the river whispered again. I didn't catch the words this time, didn't want to. I just drove, and prayed the bridge didn't decide it was done holding me. The bridge wanted me to stop. I could feel it in the way the boards bucked under the tires, each one slamming like a warning knock. Every thud made the straps in the cargo bed rattle, boxes shifting like they were scared too. I kept my foot on the gas, steady but not too heavy. I'd driven enough old bridges to know you don't want to test their patience. Not too fast, not too slow, like easing past a sleeping dog. But then the voices came back. Not through the radio, not in my head. From outside. I didn't hear them with my ears exactly. I felt them on my skin, soft and sticky, like the fog itself was breathing words against me. Turn back. Don't look down. And quieter, threaded under it all, my name. I gritted my teeth so hard my jaw ached. Nope, not happening. I'm not. You're already marked. That one froze me. My chest hurt from how fast it was slamming, like it was trying to punch out, like it knew before my brain did. I snapped my eyes to the windshield. The fog was thicker now, but shapes kept twitching in it. Not figures exactly, more like the afterimage you get when you stare at a light bulb too long. Human-shaped smudges, pulsing closer, then gone. Something tapped the side of the truck. Not hard, just enough, like a knuckle rapping politely on a door. I jerked my head toward the passenger window. Nothing, just wet glass and fog. Another tap, this time on the driver's side. Then the back. Like they were circling me. Keep driving, I told myself. My voice sounded strange, tight, like it belonged to someone else. But my hands shook on the wheel. The sweat coming down my arms stung where it touched old scratches, and I hated how much I could smell myself. Fear sweat, sour and heavy, mixing with the metallic stink of the bridge. Something shifted in the corner of my eye, down. I didn't want to look, but of course I did. Through the cracks in the planks, the river gleamed. Only it wasn't water now. It was faces again. Dozens, hundreds, pressed against the underside of the bridge, pale and stretched, their mouths moving in time with the whispers in the fog. Their eyes found me. I almost puked. My insides twisted like a towel being wrung out, and my throat clenched so tight it burned. I slammed my gaze back up, gasped air like I'd been drowning. But the rules snapped back in my head. Don't look down. I'd broken it. The fog answered. A voice hissed right against my ear, closer than anything had been yet. You're next. The truck shuddered like something had jumped on the back. The cargo banged hard enough that I thought it might burst open. I floored the gas. Tires screamed, boards groaned. The whole bridge quaked under me like it was tearing loose from its bolts. Figures slid closer through the fog. They weren't just smudges now. They were people-shaped but bent wrong. Limbs too long, spines hunched, heads tilted like they'd been snapped sideways and left that way. And their faces, God. Their skin looked like paper someone had handled too much. Creased, smudged, soft in the wrong places, like if you touched it your finger would poke straight through. They pressed against the fog like it was glass. Their mouths stretched, too wide. The sound wasn't whispers anymore. It was more like dozens of people all breathing in at once, wet and hungry. The steering wheel fought me, not like vibration, like something underneath was tugging it, dragging the tires toward the edge. My chest clenched, every muscle screaming to keep it straight. I'm not stopping, I yelled, my voice cracking. The fog thickened so much I couldn't even see the hood of the truck. My headlights were just a weak glow in the white. The road could have been gone entirely and I wouldn't have known until we dropped. Something slammed the side of the truck hard enough to dent metal. I heard it, sharp, wet, like meat and steel colliding. I swore out loud, fists white on the wheel. Almost there, I told myself. Almost. The fog broke open in a window again. The far end of the bridge was visible, but not empty this time. The same figure I'd seen before. Tall, still, head tilted just a little too far. Waiting. This time it raised its arm. Slow, deliberate, and pointed straight at me. My foot pressed harder. The truck screamed, metal clanging under me like a death rattle. The voices rose into a roar. My name screamed over and over, tangled with others, names I didn't recognize, maybe names of the drivers who'd never come back. Stay off the bridge, the sheriff's voice barked through the chaos, like a last-minute order I'd already ruined. I gritted my teeth and drove straight through the pointing figure, praying it was just fog. For a second, the cab went ice cold. My breath crystallized in front of me, white smoke spilling from my mouth. Something slid across my shoulders, heavy, cold, like fingers brushing my collarbone. Then it was gone. The fog behind me screamed like metal tearing. I didn't dare look back. I don't remember the wheels hitting solid ground. 1 second I was choking on fog, voices clawing through my head, something brushing my skin from nowhere. The next, I was off. Asphalt under me, quiet trees leaning close, fog thinning like it had never been there. I pulled over hard, brake so sharp the boxes in the back slammed into the cab wall. My hands wouldn't let go of the wheel. They were cramped claws, knuckles burning. The engine idled, a soft ticking noise that felt almost insulting after what I'd just plowed through. I sucked in air, but it didn't help. My lungs felt bruised. My chest still hammered, like my heart was stuck in panic gear. I told myself, it's over, you crossed, it's done. But it wasn't. The whispers didn't stop. They were faint now, buried under the night sounds of crickets and wind. But they were there. My name stretched thin, curling in the dark like smoke. I climbed out of the truck just to prove it wasn't in the cab with me. The night hit me damp and sharp, fog hanging low in strips along the road. The bridge loomed behind me, ribs of rust swallowed by the mist. I didn't want to look, but of course I did. For a second, I swore I saw people standing along the guardrails, thin, bent, watching. Then a truck passed on the opposite side of the river, its headlights flashing quick through the fog, and the figures were gone. I nearly collapsed against my own hood, stomach lurching. I felt like I was going to puke, like my insides were twisting up on themselves. I had to keep moving. Deliveries don't wait for a man's nerves. So I drove. The road after the bridge cut through the town, a string of dim streetlights and squat brick buildings. Not much was open, just the diner, the liquor store, and a bar glowing weak yellow like a sick tooth. I dropped off 2 packages. Normal houses, normal front doors, the kind with welcome mats that lied straight to your face. But the people who answered, they looked at me like they already knew. A woman in a robe, hair wet from a shower, signed her package and wouldn't meet my eyes. She kept glancing past me, like she expected someone else standing over my shoulder. When she closed the door, I swear I heard her whisper, "Another one." The next stop was a guy about my age. Ball cap, grease under his nails. He took the box, stared at me like he was checking for marks, then muttered, "Dumb bastard," before slamming the door. I stood there on his porch, box dust still clinging to my arms, my ears ringing. What the hell did they know? Back in the truck, I flicked the radio on without thinking. Bad move. Static poured out. Not the ordinary hiss. This was layered, pulsing, like someone breathing through the wires. Then the sheriff's voice again. Flat, clipped. "Stay off the bridge. Don't look down. Ignore the voices." I slammed it off. But the words hung in the cab like smoke. 3 rules, 3 warnings. I'd already broken one. That's when it hit me. It wasn't random. It was ritual. Not just safety advice. Not just ghost stories. Rules. Like the bridge wasn't just a crossing, it was a test. And the voices, the faces under the water, the figures in the fog, they were part of it, bound to it. The sheriff wasn't trying to scare people. He was keeping the ritual alive. I sat in the cab, staring at my own reflection in the windshield. My skin looked washed out, stretched weird under the glow of the dash lights. For half a second, I swore my mouth moved on its own, whispering along with the voices I was trying not to hear. I blinked. Just me again. "Deliver the damn package," I muttered. That's all. But I didn't believe it anymore. The bridge wasn't done with me, and the town knew it. I parked the truck back at the depot around midnight. The place was quiet, just one overhead light buzzing like it wanted to die. I killed the engine and just sat there, staring at the building's brick wall. I couldn't make myself move. My whole body felt like it had been put through a wringer. My arms ached, my legs were jelly, and my chest still thumped hard enough that I could hear it in my ears. But it wasn't just exhaustion. The whispers were still there. Not loud now, not urgent, but steady, like a leaky faucet. Sometimes they said my name, sometimes other names, strung together, whispered in that wet breath way that made my skin crawl. I rubbed my face, hard, trying to wake myself out of it. Inside the depot, I logged the last deliveries. My supervisor wasn't around, thank God. I wasn't in the mood for another lecture about timeliness and customer satisfaction. But the log sheet made me pause. I flipped through the previous weeks, looking for the route I'd just run. The one with the bridge. That's when I saw it. The driver before me, my coworker, the one whose name I'd heard in the fog, his sheet just stopped. No exit signature, no follow-ups, just an empty column. I remembered his locker, still closed, still padlocked, like nobody had touched it. I shut the logbook fast, heart banging again. The whispers leaned close in my ear, soft and smug. He didn't make it. I stumbled out of the office, gulping night air like I'd been held underwater. The drive home was worse. My headlights kept catching shapes at the edge of the road. Bent spines, heads tilted too far, the kind of smudged faces you don't really see until you blink and they're gone. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I was shaking so bad my key missed the lock twice. Inside, I didn't even bother with food. I sat on the couch in the dark, staring at the blank TV screen. My reflection wobbled on the black glass, pale and tired, eyes hollow. But then another reflection slid in next to mine. Not me. A face stretched thin, waterlogged, skin creased like old paper. Its mouth opened too wide, like it was trying to swallow me whole. I screamed and threw the remote at the screen. The glass cracked, spiderwebbing across the reflection. My breath tore in and out. My arms were shaking. I told myself it was just my head, just exhaustion. But the TV screen wasn't the only place. Every mirror in the house, the bathroom, the hallway, the microwave door, they all showed me warped, twisted, water-heavy faces that blinked when I didn't. The whispers kept bleeding through, not just in my ears anymore. Through the walls, through the floor, through the pipes. Couldn't sleep. At 4 in the morning, I drove to the diner, the only place with lights on in this whole dead town. The waitress looked like she hadn't slept in years, eyes bagged, smile too stiff. She poured me coffee without asking. When she set the cup down, she leaned in just enough that her voice didn't carry. "You shouldn't have crossed it." I froze, coffee sloshing in the cup. "What did you say?" She didn't answer, just walked off to take another order. I sat there shaking, staring at the steam curling off the coffee, until my hands finally stopped long enough to take a sip. When I left, I didn't go home. I went to the library. The building was old, smelled like mildew and dust, the kind of place where even the books looked tired. I asked the clerk if they had anything on Cutter's Bridge. She gave me a look that said I'd stepped into the wrong conversation, then muttered, "Local history section's upstairs." I found it. And I found the records. Old newspaper clippings, photos in grainy black and white. The bridge had been built 80 years ago. Officially, it was a project to connect the town to the highway. Unofficially, it was built over a burial site, an old ritual ground. The articles didn't say much, just vague mentions of accidents during construction, workers disappearing, unexplained drownings. But between the lines, the pattern was obvious. People had been dying on that bridge since the day it was built. And the sheriff's family name? Right there. The man who'd overseen the project. The man who'd declared it safe. My stomach twisted up, sour and sharp. The whispers hissed from the stacks behind me, curling soft between the shelves. Now you know. I slammed the book shut, the sound echoing too loud in the empty room. The clerk shot me a look from the desk below, but I didn't care. I shoved the articles back and left. Because now it wasn't just paranoia. It was truth. And the bridge wasn't just haunted. It was fed. I tried to go back to work the next day like nothing was wrong. Pretend normal. Load the truck, punch the clock, crack dumb jokes with the other drivers. But it didn't stick. Every time I closed my eyes, even for a blink, the bridge was there. The fog, the outlines of bodies leaning over the rail, and that whisper, always my name now, stretched out, wet and heavy, like someone dragging it through water before speaking it. I forced myself to keep moving, lifting boxes, signing papers, scribbling addresses, but my body wasn't buying it. My hands trembled so bad I dropped a whole crate of bottled soda. The crash was like a shotgun blast. Glass skittered across the floor, soda hissing as it poured out. The guys laughed at first until they saw my face. Then the room went quiet. "You look like shit, man," one of them muttered. I wanted to tell him, to just spill it all right there. The bridge, the voices, the faces in the glass. But my tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. The whispers hissed, "Don't." So I didn't. Instead, I nodded, forced a smile, and kept moving like I wasn't falling apart inside. That night, I tried to stay awake. Sat at the kitchen table with a pot of coffee, chain smoking until the ashtray overflowed. My hands shook so hard I could barely keep the cigarettes lit. But sleep doesn't ask permission. Sometime after 3, my head dropped forward, and I was gone. And I dreamed. No, that word feels too soft. It wasn't a dream. It was the bridge. I was standing on it again, fog curling around my legs like wet ropes. The whispers weren't whispers anymore. They were voices, hundreds of them, layered and tangled, all speaking at once. Some crying, some laughing, some calling my name like it was a prayer. Shapes moved in the fog. Hands reached through it, fingers long and swollen, skin bloated like corpses pulled from the river. They touched me, cold and heavy, and I couldn't move. Then one face pushed out of the fog. The driver before me, my coworker. His eyes were swollen shut, lips chewed raw. He opened his mouth and water spilled out, trickling down his chin as he tried to speak. I woke up choking. Water, real water, was running down my face, soaking my shirt. My couch cushions were drenched. I shot off the couch and stumbled back, gasping, wiping at my face. But the ceiling was dry. The pipes were fine. No leak. The water wasn't from here. It was from there. And I'd brought it back with me. I didn't sleep again. Couldn't. Every time I blinked, I saw him. The way his mouth worked, the sound of water splashing out. The next morning, I called in sick. My supervisor grumbled, but I didn't care. I wasn't going back to work. Not yet. Instead, I drove out of town, just picked a direction and floored it. Past the gas stations, past the silos, out where the land flattened into fields. I told myself if I got far enough away, the whispers would stop. But they didn't. Even with the windows down and the radio blasting, they followed me. Faint at first, like an echo in the back of my skull. Then louder, closer. By the time I hit the county line, the fog was already curling in the ditches. I slammed the brakes and just sat there on the shoulder, gripping the wheel until my knuckles ached. I couldn't outrun it, because it wasn't about the bridge anymore. It was about me. It wanted me back. And the worst part? Somewhere deep down, a part of me wanted to go. Like a hook buried in my chest, tugging me forward, step by step, mile by mile. By the time I turned the truck around, my whole body felt wrong, like I wasn't steering it anymore. My arms moved, but they didn't feel like mine. My foot pressed the gas, and I swore I could feel something else pushing it down. I drove back into town, back toward the bridge, back toward the fog. I don't remember deciding to drive back toward the bridge. That's what scares me the most. 1 second, I was sitting at a red light, trying to steady my breathing, knuckles white around the wheel. The next, the light was green, and my hands just turned, like they had their own orders, like my body had been waiting for me to stop fighting. And suddenly there it was. The bridge. The fog was thicker than ever, piled up in rolling sheets, spilling over the guardrails like smoke. My headlights caught it, turned it into a wall of glowing white that moved like it was breathing. I stopped at the edge, engine idling, radio hissing. And then, clearer than ever, the sheriff's voice again. "Stay off the bridge. It's not safe." But it wasn't just his voice this time. Came layered, his words, and under them something else, something lower, wetter, like the sound of a mouth full of river water trying to speak. I reached for the dial to shut it off, but my hand froze halfway there. My fingers twitched, locked, wouldn't move. The whispers hissed through the speakers. "Don't look down." I wanted to throw the truck in reverse, to peel out and never look back. But instead, my foot pressed the gas. Slowly, steady. The truck rolled forward onto the bridge. The tires groaned against the old boards, each plank bending like bones under weight. The whole structure shivered as I inched across, fog wrapping the hood, swallowing the windshield. I kept telling myself, just drive, just get to the other side. But the bridge had other plans. Halfway across, the headlights flickered, the engine coughed, static screamed through the radio so loud it rattled the dashboard. And then shapes. At first they looked like fog curls, shadows playing tricks, but they sharpened as I rolled closer. People. No, not people. They were too still, too stiff, lined up along the rails like rotten fence posts, their heads tilted in unison, following me as I crept past. I gripped the wheel so tight my hands went numb. My chest felt like it was caving in. One of them stepped forward. It didn't walk, didn't move like anything alive. It just shifted, like the fog had decided to harden into a body right there in front of me. Its face was waterlogged, sagging, skin gray and split, eyes swollen but too bright in the dark, like caught in high beams. It opened its mouth. My name poured out. Not said, not spoken, poured, like a waterfall of syllables gushing straight from its chest. I stomped the gas, but the truck jerked, stalled, and died. Silence swallowed everything. The figures leaned closer, their faces pressed to the glass, breath fogging the windows even though I couldn't see lungs moving. Fingers tapped on the metal, not frantic, slow, patient, like they had all the time in the world. Couldn't breathe, my chest locked up, my brain screamed, "Don't look down." So of course I did. The river below wasn't a river anymore. It was a mirror. And staring back at me wasn't me. It was me drowned, bloated, skin bloated and torn, mouth full of river weeds, eyes rolled white. I jerked back so hard my head hit the seat. The radio exploded in static. The sheriff's voice shrieking now, "Stay off the bridge. Don't look down. Stay off the bridge." The figures slammed the truck. Hard, metal buckled, glass spiderwebbed. I screamed, fumbling with the keys, twisting them so fast I thought they'd snap. The engine roared back to life, headlights cutting through the fog. And then I was moving, faster than I thought possible. Tires screaming across wet planks, the whole bridge shaking like it was about to give way. Figures lunging in the beams, slamming against the truck, palms cracking the glass. The far end appeared like a mouth opening. I floored it, burst through the fog, and the night air hit me like a punch. Silence. No whispers, no figures, just the empty road stretching ahead. I didn't stop driving until I was back in town, parked crooked in front of my apartment, chest heaving like I'd run the whole way on foot. But even in the silence, even in the safety of my own driveway, I could still hear them. Not in the radio, not in the fog, in me. Every breath carried their whisper. Every blink, I saw their faces pressed against the glass. And deep down, a truth settled in my gut like a stone. I hadn't escaped. I'd just been let go. I didn't sleep, couldn't. Every time I shut my eyes, the inside of the truck window was there again. Those gray faces pressed against the glass, lips working my name like it was theirs to keep. So I sat in my kitchen with every light on, drinking coffee I didn't even taste, chain smoking until my ashtray looked like a graveyard. My hand still shook from gripping the wheel, but worse than that, I felt watched, even in my own damn apartment, like the fog hadn't stayed behind, like it had followed me in. By morning, I knew I couldn't keep pretending this was just me losing it. I'd seen them, I'd heard them, and the sheriff's voice wasn't some prank. Someone knew. So I started asking questions. Not the smart way, not the patient, careful way. I was too raw for that. I went to the diner, the only one in town that opened before dawn, and sat at the counter with a notebook I couldn't bring myself to open. The waitress poured coffee, smiled the tired way waitresses do, and asked if I wanted eggs. And instead of answering, I blurted, "What's with the bridge?" Her smile froze, just for a second, just a hitch, but I caught it. She looked down at her pad, scribbled like she hadn't heard, and walked away. The two old men in the booth by the window stopped talking. One of them turned his head, slow and stiff, and stared at me with eyes that didn't blink. The whole place went quiet. That silence was worse than the fog. It made the air feel heavier, like the whole town had just leaned in close, daring me to say it again. I didn't. I shoved my coffee back, burned my throat, dropped a 10 on the counter, and left without touching my food. But I'd seen enough. They knew. All of them. Back at my apartment, I tried the internet. Old bridge accidents plus town name. Deaths on bridge. Bridge history. Nothing. Just tourist bullshit. Photos of fishermen smiling with their catches. The bridge framed behind them like some picturesque landmark. Travel blogs with paragraphs about small town charm and a bridge worth walking across. Not a single mention of accidents. Not even one. Which was bullshit. Every bridge has accidents. There should have been at least one article. Unless someone scrubbed them. The whispers laughed when I slammed the laptop shut. A wet, gurgling laugh that seemed to come from inside the walls. I decided if the internet wouldn't talk, I'd have to try paper. That afternoon, I went to the library. Old brick building, smelled like dust and mildew. The woman at the desk was polite until I asked about local records. Then she stiffened, smiled too wide, and pointed me to a back room with bound newspapers stacked like coffins. I dug. Hours of turning pages, headlines blurring together. Fundraisers, town meetings, high school sports scores. Nothing. Until one page yellowed and torn, half the ink faded. Headline: Local driver missing near bridge. No details, no follow-up, just a single paragraph about a delivery truck found abandoned on the far side of the river. Driver assumed to have left town. That was it. No name, no picture, just gone. But someone had written in the margin, faded pencil almost rubbed away. Not the first, not the last. My hands shook as I traced the words. The room felt colder. The lights buzzed overhead, flickering. And then I realized I wasn't alone. A man stood at the end of the row, sheriff's uniform. He hadn't made a sound, just appeared standing too still, watching me. I froze. My throat went dry. He nodded at the papers. You don't want to go digging too deep in there. His voice, exactly the same as the one from the radio. I swallowed hard. That was you. He tilted his head, smiled without showing teeth. I don't know what you mean. The lights flickered again, long enough for the whole room to go dark, just for a blink. And when they came back, he was gone. The only thing left was the whisper, curling in my ear like smoke. Don't look down. I didn't go straight home after the library. Couldn't. My body felt like a wire pulled too tight. If I sat still, I knew the whispers would crawl right back in. So I drove, aimless, circling through side streets, looping past empty parking lots, letting the miles pile up until I felt the cigarette smoke scraping raw at the back of my throat. But no matter where I turned, the bridge was still there in my head. The sheriff's face, calm as stone, telling me I didn't want to dig. The words scribbled in the margin. Not the first, not the last. He was right about one thing. I didn't want to. Every part of me screamed to drop it. Just quit the job, pack a bag, and leave town. But I couldn't, because I already knew the truth was bigger than me. And if I ran, the whispers would just follow. So I started asking the wrong people the wrong questions. At the gas station, I leaned on the counter and asked the clerk if he ever heard the radio skip. He froze mid-scan, his eyes cutting sharp to the security camera in the corner before he shook his head. Don't know what you mean. At the bar, I asked a guy nursing a beer if he remembered anyone who went missing around here. He stared into his glass, lips moving like he was praying, and muttered, "Best to let the river keep what it takes." By the third time I asked, word must have spread. I could feel eyes following me down Main Street, curtains twitching when I passed. The same silence as in the diner, but thicker now, like the whole town had agreed not to answer. That's how I found the cemetery. Not through directions, through avoidance. I noticed people avoided a certain road out past the grain silos. Cars would turn early. Kids on bikes pedaled faster past the intersection. So one night, long after the sun dropped, I drove that way myself. The road was cracked, lined with weeds tall as my knees. At the end sat a cemetery half swallowed by fog, stones leaning like tired teeth. And there, tucked in the corner behind a rusted gate, was a plaque, green with age, letters almost eaten through. It read, "Dedicated to the founders who gave themselves for passage." Passage. The word sank in like lead. I knelt, ran my fingers over the letters, and felt grooves deeper than the metal should have held, like the words had been carved over and over, ritual sharp, until the message bled permanent. That's when I heard it. Not the whispers, not this time. A voice. Soft, shaky, but human. "Shouldn't be here." I spun. A woman stood at the edge of the fog. Older, hair tangled, clothes hanging like rags. She looked more like she lived out here than visited. Her eyes darted past me to the plaque, then back. "They don't like it when you read that." "Who?" My voice came out cracked, rough. She didn't answer, just shuffled closer, breath whistling like every inhale hurt. "You hear it, don't you?" she whispered. "On the radio, in the fog." My skin prickled. "You've heard it too?" She nodded, slow. "All of us have. But we don't talk, not out loud. Talking brings it closer. What is it? My words spilled too fast, too hungry. What's on the bridge? What do they want? Her face twisted. Not anger, not fear, just grief worn too long. They want what was promised. The fog thickened behind her, curling into the trees like claws. She stepped back, fading with it, voice thinning into the mist. They want the rest. And then she was gone. I stood there shaking, every muscle screaming to run, but my feet nailed to the ground. My brain replayed her words until they didn't sound like words anymore, just noise twisting tighter. What was promised? The rest. The rest. When I finally tore myself away, I knew two things. One, the bridge wasn't just haunted. It was built on purpose. And two, the town wasn't hiding the curse. The town was feeding it. The next morning, I didn't even bother pretending to clock in for work. My supervisor could fire me, blacklist me, whatever. What did it matter if I couldn't even cross a bridge without dragging a curse home with me? The only thing that mattered now was figuring out what the hell this town had done. So I went back to the library, not for the neat stacks or the computers, but for the basement. I'd noticed a locked door down there on my last trip, tucked behind the genealogy shelves. The kind of door librarians don't talk about unless you ask 3 times. So I asked. The same woman from before stared at me with flat eyes, then finally handed me a key like it was burning her hand. "Don't take anything out," she said. The room smelled like mildew and paper rot. Boxes stacked floor to ceiling, labels smudged with decades of dust. I dug through until I found the ones marked founding records. Most of it was what you'd expect: land deeds, lists of names, church meeting notes. But in the middle of one box was a folder thicker than the rest. Inside, maps. Not tourist maps, ritual maps. The original surveyor's sketch of the land had circles scrawled in the margins, notes scribbled in a handwriting so jagged it barely looked human. Crossing site strongest here. Blood required. And below that, drawn in red ink that hadn't faded like the black, a line across the river labeled bridge. I flipped to the next page and nearly dropped it. A list of names. Dozens, maybe hundreds, stretching back over a century. Beside each, a single date. And next to every 10th name, 2 words written in block letters, "Given safe." My chest ached reading it. My hands went numb, because I knew what it meant. Every so many years, the town gave someone up. Drivers, travelers, whoever the bridge chose. They were given to it, fed into the river like an offering. And in return, the rest of the town was spared. I shoved the folder back, slamming the lid before my stomach turned inside out. I staggered out of the basement, clutching the rail, lungs straining like I'd been underwater too long. The sheriff was waiting at the top of the stairs. "Find what you needed?" His voice was flat, almost gentle. I couldn't answer. My mouth was dry, tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. He stepped closer, boots echoing on the tile. "That bridge has stood 100 years because of what we do. You think that's an accident? You think the river just lets people walk over for free?" I shook my head, backing up. My legs felt rubbery, but I couldn't stop. He sighed, like a teacher disappointed in a dumb student. "It's better you understand now. Better than ending up one of the names." His radio hissed, the one on his belt. Static crawled out of it, low and wet, bubbling like breath underwater. Then my name, stretched out too long, dripping into the room. The sheriff's eyes didn't even flicker. He just turned the volume down and clipped it back to his belt. "You hear it too," I rasped. My throat hurt saying it. He didn't answer, just looked at me with eyes that felt older than the man wearing them. Then he said, "Don't look down." and walked away. I stood there shaking, gripping the stair rail until my knuckles burned, the whispers filling the silence he left behind. Not the first, not the last. And if the names in that folder were right, I was next. I couldn't stay in the library after that. My skin felt like it was crawling with mold, like the paper dust from those boxes had gotten under it. I stumbled outside into the daylight, gasping air like I just crawled out of a cave. The town looked the same as yesterday. People hauling groceries from trucks, kids biking past the diner, a guy on a ladder painting his shutters. Normal. But it wasn't. Now I saw the seams. The way people glanced at the bridge, then snapped their eyes away like they'd been burned. The way cars slowed before crossing, some drivers whispering to themselves with their lips moving in fast little prayers. I stood in the middle of Main Street, staring at them like a lunatic, and realized they all knew. Every single one of them. And they were fine with it. I ducked into the diner because I needed noise, needed clinking glasses and someone yelling for hash browns just to drown out the whispers coiling in my ears. The waitress came over, same one from last time, smiled like nothing was wrong. "Coffee?" she asked. Why didn't anyone tell me? The words came out harsher than I meant, cracking in my throat. Her smile twitched, just barely, but I saw it. "Tell you what, Han? That the bridge takes people. That this whole place..." My voice broke. I felt too loud, like everyone was listening, which they were. Forks paused. Chairs squeaked as people shifted. Not a sound from the kitchen. The waitress leaned closer, voice dropping. "You should keep your voice down." "Why?" My chest hurt, thudding so hard it made my ribs ache. "So you can all keep pretending? So nobody has to admit you're feeding strangers to that thing?" She set the coffee down, hands trembling just enough to ripple the surface. "You don't understand." I barked a laugh that tasted bitter coming up. "No, I think I do. I saw the names." That made her flinch. She smoothed her apron like she could iron the moment flat. "Then you should know there's nothing you can do." I pushed back from the booth, chair legs screaming on the tile. "There's always something I can do." But when I turned, I saw their faces. Every customer, every set of eyes. Not angry, not scared, just resigned, like they were watching me dig my own grave. I shoved through the door, the bell jangling too loud, and stormed down the street. An old man sweeping his porch muttered without looking at me, "Don't fight it, son. Makes it worse." A woman carrying laundry from her car said softly, like she was talking to herself, "Better you than mine." I wanted to scream at them, shake them until their necks snapped, but my legs just kept moving, pulling me back toward the river. The bridge loomed at the end of the road, black steel bones cutting across the water. From here, I could see the faint shimmer in the air above it, like heat off asphalt. But it wasn't heat, it was hunger. A pickup truck rolled past me, heading straight for it. The driver slowed, head bowed, lips moving. His kid in the passenger seat was crying, silent tears rolling while she clutched a stuffed bear like a lifeline. The truck crossed. Nothing happened. The kid's face lit up with relief. And I realized what was happening. It didn't always take someone. It only needed enough. I stood there, shaking so bad I had to grab the guardrail just to stay upright, while my brain put it together. The town didn't just accept it. They managed it. They counted. They prayed. They let strangers disappear when the cycle demanded it. And in return, their families got to cross safe. The whispers slid back in, curling around my ears, pushing wet syllables against my skull. "You're next." I squeezed my eyes shut, palms pressed to the cold rail. When I opened them again, the sheriff was standing on the bridge. Not walking, not driving, just standing dead center waiting for me. And I knew I'd have to go to him. I didn't stop until my tires crunched over the gravel at the edge of the bridge. My knuckles were raw from gripping the wheel, my stomach twisted like I'd swallowed barbed wire. The fog was worse than I remembered, thick enough to press against my chest like a wet blanket. The bridge ahead disappeared into white nothing, the steel cables stretching up and vanishing into it. And there he was, the sheriff, standing dead center, hands in his pockets, head tilted just so. The radio static curled around him like smoke, hissing syllables that sounded like teeth grinding. "You came back," he said. His voice was calm, but it scraped against my brain like nails on metal. I tried to open my mouth, but my throat had knotted. My chest thumped so hard I thought it might punch a hole through my ribs. "You know why," he continued. "You've seen the papers. You've heard the whispers. The bridge doesn't lie." I swallowed. I don't belong here." "You do now," he said. "We all do." I could hear them then, the shadows. Not just the fog, not just whispers. Something moving on the bridge, shifting shapes that weren't quite human. Faces pressed against the steel beams, eyes too bright, mouths opening too wide, names slipping from them in wet, bubbling tones. My foot pressed back on the truck brake. Nothing. Tires skidded on the metal, slick with condensation. "Step out," the sheriff said. "It's your turn to give." I shook my head, voice trembling, raw. "No, I can't." But the bridge didn't give me a choice. The boards beneath me groaned. The wind picked up, wailing through the cables like the bridge itself was sighing in hunger. The shadows leaned closer, faces bloated, mouths dripping with water, eyes fixed on me like I'd already been claimed. I stumbled out of the truck, legs barely holding me, and the fog wrapped around me like fingers trying to pull me down. "Don't look down," the sheriff said. I didn't, but I couldn't stop the reflection from appearing in the wet steel beneath my boots. My own face, twisted and gray, staring back at me, mouth moving without sound, eyes full of panic. "Give yourself," the sheriff said, stepping closer. His boots didn't make a sound. "Or the bridge takes more than just you." The shadows shifted, curling under the cables, rising along the guardrails, waiting, patient, hungry. My pulse thundered in my ears. Every step I took felt wrong, like the bridge itself was moving against me, bending planks under my feet. I tried to run, tried to fight, but the fog pressed down, thick and heavy, clinging to my clothes, my skin, even my teeth. And the whispers, my name, again and again, stretched wet and dripping, filled every corner of my skull. The sheriff raised his hand, slow, almost ceremonial. "Time to choose," he said. The air vibrated with anticipation, like the whole town, the river, the fog, even the bridge itself, was holding its breath. I felt it then, the pull, not the shadows, not the whispers, not even the sheriff. The bridge wanted me, and the weight of every missing driver, every name on those old papers, pressed down on my shoulders like iron chains. I could fight it, I could run, but I knew deep down, running wasn't an option. My legs felt like wet rope. Every step forward on the bridge was a struggle, the fog curling tight around my ankles, tugging at me like it wanted me to fall. The sheriff didn't move, just watched, hands in pockets, face calm, eyes like stone. The shadows along the rails leaned in, mouths dripping water, teeth too sharp, too pale. Their names bubbled in my ears, all at once, overlapping. My own name, the names of the missing drivers, and some I didn't know, people I hadn't even met. I stumbled, almost falling. My hand slammed against the cold steel railing. Rust flakes crumbled under my grip, a metallic smell biting my nose. "Step back," I whispered to myself. My chest was on fire from how fast it was hammering, trying to escape my ribcage. The sheriff's voice cut through the fog. "Do it, or the bridge decides for you." I could feel it then, the bridge itself, shaking beneath my boots, cables creaking, planks groaning. Not an accident, a warning, or maybe a threat. I knew what he meant. If I refused, it wouldn't just take me. It would take the next delivery driver, the next family, the next town outsider wandering too close. And my mind snapped. I sprinted. Not toward him, not away, across the span of the bridge, toward the thickest fog, toward the shapes, toward the unknown. They lunged at me, not fast but inevitable, faces pressing from every side, hands slapping the steel, skin wet, mouths opening, stretching. The reflection in the metal beneath my boots showed me twisted, gray, half drowned, but I didn't look down. I jumped. Not off the bridge, never off the bridge, but toward the thickest fog, arms flailing, dragging one shadow into another. The shadows screamed, or maybe it was me screaming, but it sounded like water gurgling through a grave. The sheriff stepped aside, almost expecting it. I kept moving, staggering through the fog that tried to cling, tried to wrap around me like vines. Planks twisted under my weight, cables groaning. And then the first collapse. A section of the bridge buckled under some invisible weight, groaning like a ribcage about to snap. I didn't stop. I leapt across, one foot landing on a solid plank, the other scraping wet steel, sparks of rust flying. The shadows recoiled slightly, not gone, but waiting, watching, patient. I reached the other side, not safe but not swallowed yet. My chest felt like it had been replaced with a drum, every beat hammering out a rhythm I could barely follow. I looked back. The fog swirled where I'd been, shapes twisted, faces pressed to the gaps in the collapsing planks, arms reaching out, names calling. The reflection of the river showed the bridge splitting, bending under some force I couldn't comprehend. And the sheriff, still standing, calm as ever. "You made your choice," he said. I didn't answer, couldn't. I was shaking too hard, trying to shove breath into my lungs like I'd been underwater too long. The radio in his belt hissed again, static spilling into the night. Names, my name, other names, counting off, counting me. I stumbled away from the bridge, legs unsteady, chest heaving, every nerve screaming. My hands left deep rust marks on the railing as I pushed off. Behind me, the bridge groaned, twisted, then settled into an uneasy silence. The fog lingered, the whispers faded, but didn't leave entirely. They curled at the edge of my hearing, reminding me it wasn't over. I thought I was free, but freedom on this bridge doesn't exist. I don't remember driving back into town. One second I was stumbling off the bridge, lungs burning, rust stains on my hands. The next I was on Main Street again, headlights cutting through the quiet, buildings sliding past like ghosts. Everything looked the same, too much the same. The diner lights still glowed, pale yellow against the fog. The grocery sign buzzed, flickering like it had been stuck mid-blink for 100 years. A couple of cars rolled by, slow, their drivers' faces tight, pale. But now I saw it. The looks. Every person I passed, they stared at me, not curious, not even shocked, just knowing, like they'd been waiting to see if I'd crawl back or not. My stomach twisted so hard I thought I was going to puke right there in the cab. I pulled over outside the post office and bent over the wheel, sucking air that felt too thick, like breathing cotton. The radio clicked on by itself. Static. Then, "Stay off the bridge. It's not safe." I slammed the knob, but the volume didn't change. "Don't look down. Ignore the voices." The exact same warning. But this time the voice wasn't clean, wasn't neutral. It was warped, like it was half drowning in the river, bubbling through waterlogged lungs. Then it said my name. I ripped the keys out, but the voice didn't stop. The dashboard lights flickered, the speakers hissing my name again and again, stretching it like wet rope. I bolted. Didn't even bother locking the truck. I just ran into the night air, my boots slapping against cracked pavement, lungs clawing for breath. The town was too quiet. No dogs barking, no insects buzzing, just me and the sound of my heartbeat trying to tear me apart from the inside. I passed the diner window and caught my reflection in the glass. Except it wasn't me. My face in the glass was pale, gray, waterlogged. My mouth moved, whispering, but no sound came out. My eyes rolled white, then snapped to mine. I staggered back so hard I tripped over the curb, slamming my elbow into the asphalt. The sting shot up my arm, but I barely felt it. I scrambled up, half running, half lurching, refusing to look at the glass again. When I finally reached my rented room above the garage, I slammed the door, locked it twice, dragged a chair under the knob. My body felt shredded, every muscle shaking, but I didn't trust myself to sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the dark window. My reflection was faint, just enough moonlight to catch my outline. I couldn't stop staring, waiting for it to move wrong. The radio on the nightstand clicked on. Static. "It isn't over." I unplugged it, yanked the cord so hard the plug bent sideways. Still whispering. I shoved it out the window, heart slamming, chest on fire, sweat freezing against my skin. The radio clattered against the alley below. The whispers bled into silence. For a while, anyway. I sat there in the dark, arms wrapped tight around myself, rocking like a lunatic while the walls leaned in closer. The air pressed heavier. The silence hummed with voices I couldn't quite hear. When the sun finally pushed through the blinds, it didn't help. The light didn't chase anything away. It just showed me more clearly how pale my hands had gotten overnight, the faint rust stains that wouldn't wash off no matter how hard I scrubbed. And in the back of my skull, under the throb of my headache, I heard the bridge groaning. Waiting. Always waiting. I lasted 3 days. 3 days of pretending the bridge was behind me. 3 days of avoiding the river road, of keeping the curtains shut, of unplugging every radio I owned. But it didn't matter. The whispers don't need wires. They don't need speakers. They find you anyway. At first it was subtle. A name slipping under the sound of frying eggs. A wet syllable stretching under the shower spray. A groan hidden in the creak of the stairs. Then louder. By the second night, I woke to hear someone breathing just inches from my face. My room was empty, but the glass of water on the nightstand rippled like something heavy had just stepped inside. On the third night, I dreamed of the bridge collapsing under me, the sheriff standing calm in the middle while I fell through the planks into black water full of faces. When I woke up, my sheets were soaked. Not sweat, not piss, but cold river water that smelled like rust and rot. I knew I couldn't stay. I stuffed what I could into the truck and drove. Past the diner, past Main Street, past the library with its locked basement. The town got smaller in my rearview mirror until it vanished into the fog. I thought I'd done it. I thought I'd left it all behind. But the road ahead was fog too. Hours passed and the fog didn't clear. Trees bent over the road like ribs, the world narrowing, squeezing. My headlights bounced back at me, making the white thicker, closer. And then I saw it. A bridge. Not the same one. This one was wood, older, sagging under its own weight. The river below it glimmered faintly, too dark, too still. I hit the brakes so hard my chest slammed the wheel. The radio, dead for days, crackled alive. Emergency alert. Stay off the bridge. It's not safe. My stomach twisted like someone had shoved their hand inside and squeezed. The voice continued, warped and wet. Don't look down. Ignore the voices. I killed the engine, ripped the keys out. The voice didn't stop. Your turn. The fog pressed against the windows. Something moved in it, figures half-formed, standing too still, waiting. I gripped the wheel so tight my fingers hurt. My chest slammed with every beat, ribs aching. I told myself I wouldn't. I told myself I'd just sit there, wait until daylight, turn around. But the fog thickened. The whispers got closer. My name rolled under the static again and again, stretching thin, snapping wet, reforming. Couldn't breathe. My truck door popped open. I hadn't touched it. The night air rushed in, damp, thick, crawling into my lungs. And the sheriff's voice, calm, steady, inevitable, slid through the static. You can't outrun it. You belong to the bridge now. I don't remember stepping out. I don't remember my boots hitting the planks. But I'm here. The wood groans under me, sagging like it's tired of holding my weight. The river below doesn't move. It just stares back, black and flat, reflecting not me but some drowned version, pale and slack-jawed, mouth moving without sound. I hear them again. The voices, names, thousands of them, all stretching, bubbling. My name is one of them. The bridge hums under my feet, alive, waiting. And I know, in that ugly part of my brain I can't silence, that there will always be another. Another bridge, another warning, another poor idiot too stubborn or too desperate to turn back. The radio crackles behind me, one last hiss. Emergency alert. Stay off the bridge. I laugh. I can't stop it. Sounds cracked, broken, wrong. Because I already know. I'm not getting off this one.